everyone. Syleste Rodriguez here with The Balancing Act. We have a great guest for you, and let me show you who he is. His name is Princeton Clark, and I love the title that we have for you. It's Self-Mastery Coach and Business Entrepreneur. My new friend, nice to see you.
So great to be here. Pleasure to meet you as well.
Yeah, nice to see you. We chatted on the phone for a little bit, and your mission in life, I love. You have been through quite the journey. Mm-hmm. If you can take us to the beginning, if you can, and kind of where you are now. You do a lot of motivational speaking. You help people along their path, creating their own businesses and becoming successful. And I just love what you do. It's amazing. So nice to see you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So good to be here. Starting at the beginning. It's been a journey. I often say that my life, it feels like I've lived multiple lives in one life, but it's a testament to the strength and evolution that we all get to experience depending on what lens we live through. But I grew up in the Bible Belt of Virginia, born and raised. And, I went through a lot, that a lot of men, you might not hear them talk about, but being molested, being abused, and I struggled with deep depression. I was on medication for ADD, ADHD, hyperactivity up until about the 8th grade, from 1st grade to 8th grade. And, I just started off as a child, you think that's normal. This is just the way that it is. But around 15, 16, I realized that wasn't normal. And long story short, once I realized how I've been violated and feeling unfair, of course you go into that victim mode. You're a child, but you can't really talk about it because it happens within family.
Yeah.
And then you don't want to destroy the family. So I carried that with me for a long time. And I always say at about 10th grade, I got really good at wearing masks, really good. And I'm sure plenty of people in the audience or those viewing can relate to that. We create a mask for friends, a mask for family, a mask for colleagues at work because we're processing on our own and we don't want pity. We don't want the sympathy. We just want to get through it, But for me, I would cry myself to sleep at night. I was that person that would make everybody laugh, the life of the party. But at night, I would cry myself to sleep. And fast forward, I barely ended up graduating high school. I was a tremendous track athlete and could have had a D1 scholarship, but I wasn't there. And I checked out and ended up in gangs, on drugs. I was an alcoholic before I turned 21. Got married at the age of 21 thinking, I knew at 15, 16 years old when my oldest sister had her twins, I was like, I can't wait to be a parent. And it's like, I just wanted to give my kids the love I felt I never received. Mm-hmm. Even though hindsight, looking back on it, my parents did the best they could with what they knew at the time. And I'm so grateful. And they taught me a lot of valuable lessons, but there's no blueprint to parenting. And I slowly realized that. But
well, you have 6 kids, you said.
Yeah, 6.
Yeah, there is no blueprint. There is absolutely
25 to 5 years old, and so it's like I have the full spectrum, but it's beautiful because they each have different personalities. And I learned to communicate to them differently. Of course, the messages are the same, but you realize when you have multiple kids, they're all individual humans. They don't see the world the same. They feel different. They respond to different stimuli. You can't correct this one as harshly as you correct this one because they may not receive it. They may be more emotional. And so I had to become very mindful early on. But before I get into that, after being married for about 3 years, I was just going through a lot. We were going through a lot, arguing all the time. And I just felt like I was no good, experiencing everything. It's like, if it could hit you in life, it was hitting me. And I just felt like, I'm ready to go. I'm no good for my kids. I'm no good. I had 2 and 1 on the way at that time. And I said, my family will be better off without me. I don't want to be a stress. I don't want to be a burden. I just want to go. I'm tired. And so sitting in my car that summer, I believe it was in August, I decided, this is it. It'll be better for everyone. And I put a gun to my head and pulled the trigger and the gun misfired.
Oh, wow.
And it transformed my life that night. Series of events happened, but.
What a message that was, I think, for you, right? Mm-hmm. And it didn't fire, it misfired. Mm-hmm. And you think, okay, there's a plan for my life.
Exactly. It's like, I've tried everything. Like, I remember asking the question, what do you want from me? Like, why? What is the point of all of this? Just to keep going through pain. And that night I had what I call one of the greatest epiphanies of my life. And it was that I wasn't where I was because of what happened to me. I was where I was because of how I chose to respond to it. And it just, every time I think about it, I get chills because I think a lot of the times we become victims to circumstances, and I always say you can't always control what happens, but you can always control how you choose to see it and how you choose to respond to it, because ultimately how you think, communicate, and respond to your life is creating your reality. And so that just gave me this immense power. And I just asked this question, if I could create a mess of a life that I hated because of how I chose to respond, how much more of a beautiful life or a blessed life could I create if I actually started living like I really loved myself, like I really cared about my life? Because from that moment, every breath I would breathe was a gift.
And then you took what you experienced there, and that's really what you help people with now, right? How they react to what happens to them in life.
It's because I realized, like, my main focus over the years has been self-mastery, really coming into alignment with yourself, taking extreme ownership and accountability for what you give your focus, your energy, your attention to, so that you can be more mindful in how you respond to your life, because we're leaking energy all the time into things that don't deserve our attention. And I live by this motto: if it's not in the flow, I let it go. If it doesn't serve me, it doesn't deserve me, and of course, you have to work to embody that. It's not like I was just perfect out of the gate and everything was amazing. But yeah, it's like I realized too, with every one thing that I experienced, this is what really led me into the space of being a guide and a coach and a mentor, was with every one thing that I experienced and that I would learn or grow through, there was at least 1 million people experiencing just one of those things.
I think something important about your journey to mention as well, so you went to a Bible school. You're a pastor.
Yeah.
And I think some people might do that, or they might think this is my only path in life, right?
Yeah.
And you've had a lot of intersections like that where you've done something and you realize this is only a part of my journey, and you continue to evolve.
Yeah. So I grew up in a Bible Belt of Virginia. Even when my life changed, because I had certain people within the church, including a couple pastors, say, lost cause, like, he doesn't care. He's stubborn. That boy, he's not going to change, and, you hear people like that say stuff, or you hear your family who's so religious say stuff like that. It leaves a bad taste in your mouth. And I think that's what religion has done to a lot of people. But for me, when that happened, I didn't know where else to look after my life changed. And so I went out and I bought a King James Reference Bible, a Student's Bible, a Strong's Exhaustive Concordance, and I started studying. But I wasn't studying based on what I had been taught. I read the Bible from beginning to end that entire year. I started studying the Hebrew, the Greek, the Aramaic, because I didn't want it the way it had been taught to me. I wanted to study it from the basis of history, from the basis of their language. What were they actually saying? Not what was broken down and then given to me or filtered to me. But as I started learning that, I realized so much was taught wrong. Most of us only know what we've been taught to know because we've never done a deep enough study. And it was just amazing how my eyes were opened. But I always say, Jesus is my avatar. Jesus is my avatar. I'm not a religious man. I am a deeply spiritual person, and I say love is my religion.
Oh, I love that. Like the song.
Yeah. Love is my religion.
That's right. So, how did that, so once you became a pastor, what was next after you left that and thought, okay, this is only part of my journey, I'm going to head off and do this next?
Yeah. Well, prior to that, I ended up going back to school. It was a satellite extension program through a church that I was a minister through, and that was North Carolina Institute of Theology. I don't believe it's in service anymore. But I ended up getting my bachelor's in biblical studies, and I more became a pastor like Neo in the Matrix. Like, I'm going in and I'm going to teach it right, because it's like, no wonder so many people say they believe these truths, but they don't live it. So I went in because I wanted to give them truth that was practical, that was in front of them the entire time, but it wasn't being given to them the right way. But anyway, after 5 years of trying to do that, as you can imagine, it didn't go over so well because people were so stuck in their ways and what they had been given to know. And, I just felt this knowing in my own spirit, if you can't use the system to change the system. If you want to create change, you must become something new. And that's when I knew I had to start walking my own path. I had to create and carve out a new path, which is also a part of what I teach other people to do.
Don't you think that is a little bit of how, not just maybe you're speaking from like a spiritual standpoint, but I feel like in every industry is that if you want to do something new, if you want to do something different, sometimes you can't approach it the same way. You got to try it a different
100%.
different way.
100%. And you learn that, like, that's what I love about being an entrepreneur, being in this space. Some of my early mentors were Les Brown, Zig Ziglar, Dr. Wayne Dyer, and several others. And then, of course, Tony Robbins came into the picture. But I started studying conscious psychology, human motivations, emotional intelligence, and because I really wanted to understand the psyche behind why we respond to life the way that we do. Why is it that some people can go through these different experiences and they evolve and create these amazing lives? Other people go through the same experiences and they don't grow, they don't evolve. And so the study of people really became my passion. And I wanted to understand, okay, how can I show them how to tap into the same power that I've tapped into, that we all have? Nothing is special about me other than the decisions that I make to create the life that I want, because I understand my power. We all have the capacity to do that. And so as I began to learn and began to study and then work with these different mentors, I realized that if people are going to change, we have to be able to really take responsibility for our choices. Don't just go with it because society says it, or the job says it, or the relationship says it. Really get clear on what you want and take that power back and start putting it into the things that light you up. And sometimes that requires a level of imagination that I think a lot of adults have lost.
Oh, I think you touched on something with when you talk about imagination, because as we get older, I think you think, this is it. This is it. And where do we take it from here? How do you end up with, those are some pretty big names that you've mentioned. How do you end up in that circle?
Oh, well, back then I think it's a lot easier then. It was a lot easier then than it is now, because there was no social media. If they were having events, you could literally go to the events. They weren't, big egos, and it wasn't about highlight reels. There were times where I would go up, go to these events and just buy some of their information, and you could get their emails. And so, like, I would email them. Like, I was just excited. And the thing was, I never saw them as being above me. It's like these were just men who took the journey, gained wisdom, and I wanted to learn. And so when I could have conversations with them, that's how I approached them. And you found that they really appreciate that. And I remember Les Brown saying to me once, he was like, I'm always saying you got to be hungry, but I've never seen a hunger like yours.
You know, it's funny you mentioned that. I tell my kids all the time, I'm like, big dogs eat.
Right.
You ready to eat? Big dogs eat. We have to take a quick break in a second, but I want to talk more about also how we tap into that imagination, how we make that switch. And I know you've worked with people for a long time on this.
Balancing, being the parent versus also being the student. Because I always say my kids are my greatest teachers next to my own spirit. And the reason I say that is because I remember watching each of them as they were young. They would wake up. They didn't know limitation. If they saw something as possible, every day they woke up, it was a new adventure. It was a new opportunity to learn something new. When a child is learning to walk, they don't need someone telling them, you can walk, you can walk. They observe and they see other people doing it, and they begin to believe that they can do it as well, just by following what they see. But beyond that, as they get older, they begin to look at the world and all they see is possibility. And they begin dreaming, and they have big dreams and the big imagination. And that's something that we lose as adults because we get so programmed through the educational system, which teaches us, go to school, get a good job, get married, start a family, whatever, the old rules, even though we don't see that really operating in society today on a higher level. But school programs us to do what we're told, and we stop believing and listening to ourselves, and so imagination for me was a great change. Learning from my kids, it's like, wait a minute, I get to wake up every day and see each day like an adventure too. And all of us are receiving inspiration. We receive we receive inspiration when we watch someone achieve something great.
Oh man,
or do something that we were once passionate about. Yeah. And we think to ourselves, man, if only I could have done that, instead of, man, I'd love to get back to that, and start imagining yourself doing that, because the only thing that makes it impossible is you saying it's impossible. Yeah. And so imagination plays a huge role in even how we operate by faith. Because if I can see it, I always tell my clients, if I can see it, you will never be given a vision for something provision is not available for. Your spirit will not show you something that's impossible for you.
So are you saying I can still be an LPGA player?
Hey, anything's possible. How hard are you? This is the question though. How hard are you willing to work, and what are you willing to put yourself through?
You sound like my husband. Are you ready to go? Big dogs eat. So let's say we have this vision, this imagination, and you talked about, are you willing to put in the work? How do you get past that fear? Or I guess hesitation, right? That is another roadblock, I think. Fear is a powerful force. Well, unfortunately, it can be.
It definitely can be, but I say when it comes to personal, professional development or any type of personal evolution in your life, I love fear. And one of my favorite quotes is, if you change the way you see things, the things you see will change. There's this concept called the 4 zones of growth. And the 4 zones are the comfort zone, the fear zone, the learning zone, and the growth zone. Well, most people are in that comfortable zone, which I call comfortably miserable. And you know when you're there because you're going through the motions because it's familiar. You're just doing it because it makes sense, but you're not happy. You keep saying you want change. And then every time you go to step out into the fear zone, your mind only goes into one of 2 states: remember when or what ifs, because the brain can't quantify or qualify what you haven't experienced yet. And so your brain starts racking up all the memories of before, or all the fears of what may happen. What if people don't show up? What if the opportunity falls through? What if I don't make enough money? What if I can't take care of my kids? Remember last time you tried it? Remember last time you weren't even consistent? And it's like the brain only knows, it's been recording information since you were little, since you were born. It only knows what it's experienced. So fear is simply an alarm system from my soul letting me know I'm getting ready to learn something new. So instead of creating a brick wall with all the remember whens and what ifs, what I do is I realize that the fear zone is just a doorway, because my brain only fears what it hasn't learned yet. So if I want to overcome fear, I have to ask myself, what is this new experience requiring me to learn? And then become a student to the experience. And what you find is, as you take those consistent steps, learning new things and evolving in the areas where you're required to grow, the fear dissipates. And so fear is just an alarm system. I love when fear comes up because it lets me know I'm now no longer in comfort. That's
interesting. You mentioned that. And being a parent, you're absolutely right. I feel like it teaches us more about ourselves, and we grow in areas we never thought possible. When my kids are scared of something, I read something somewhere, and I was taking this online class, and it said fear is your body really telling you can look at it in a different way, saying your body is excited about something, because my kids are athletes. So instead of being scared about the game or scared about this, new opponent, then look at it as your body is excited. You're anxious. You're feeling, excited about it. And I think maybe that's a switch we can 100%. Make as grown-ups too. 100%.
When you think about, you hit the nail on the head with that, because I often say the same feeling you have when you're excited is the exact same feeling you have when you're anxious. But because we feel anxious more than we feel excited, especially as we become adults, when we start getting excited, we automatically assume I'm anxious, I'm nervous. And that story that we create around it embodies or takes in that fear, and it magnetizes it to the point where it starts pulling more of all the negative thoughts and the worries and the concerns. But if I approach it from that perspective of, ooh, I'm getting excited, like I'm getting to step into something new, ooh, it's going to challenge me, ooh, I'm getting to grow, like it becomes fun. I get chills just saying it out loud, because it is exciting to create your life. You only get one. Only get one.
Yeah, preach, brother, preach. I'm a big believer in morning routine. What you do first thing in the morning, it kind of gets you ready for your day. Do you have a morning routine?
I feel like my life has become a routine at this point in a great way. But I've also been on the journey for over almost 2.5 decades. Some of my morning routines in the beginning, when I was just getting started, I think this will be more beneficial to everyone. When I would wake up, I always say, start the day with gratitude. Before you do anything, don't pick up your phone, because the moment you pick up your phone, you're letting the whole world into your headspace. We get into the doom scroll and do that. And I'm like, that does not serve you. No, like you haven't even gotten into your day. You haven't even breathed in this new opportunity to create a new experience. And you're letting the drama and the relationship stuff and all the noise of the world and the news and politics and religion into your headspace. Where your focus goes, your energy flows. And so when you start your day, just lay in bed and breathe deeply. I always say do some box breathing, 4 count in, 4 count hold, 4 count exhale. Really just get present in your body. And then just think about all the things that you're grateful for, all the things that life has given you, all the opportunities for growth. And if you can't think of anything, think about life itself. Feel your body move, your hands, your feet, open your eyes, look around. You're so blessed just to have life. Get into a state of gratitude. And then once you get up, ask yourself, how do I want to feel today? Now, for me, I always say I ask those questions and I measure them based on a state of being. So I want to feel joy. Joy is not a feeling. It's not an emotion. It's not happy, because I can feel joyful even when I'm working through something. It's like going to the gym and lifting weights. The weight is heavy, but I have joy knowing that I can lift that weight, and I condition myself to do that. So I always ask myself, how can I create more joy in my life today? How can I create more peace in my life today? How can I create more love in my life today?
You are an author.
Yes.
How many books have you written?
I've written 4. The 4th one doesn't come out until January, though.
Okay.
And that's Power to Purpose. But 3 have actually been published so far. My first one was an international bestseller. And that one was Awakening Your Inner Master, The Journey of Self-Mastery, which I published that book right before I got hired to work for Tony Robbins and Dean Graziosi as a master coach. And I didn't find out until a year later that it became an international bestseller.
Oh my goodness. How did you not find out?
Because when I wrote it, I just wrote it because I wanted to help people. I didn't write it for, any other reason. It wasn't the vanity. I'm not a vanity person. I do what I do. And I literally wrote that book, and I just wanted to share with other people a space where I could be 100% vulnerable, but also connect. And for years, people would ask me, are you ever going to write a book? And I'd say, I'm not going to write a book until I can write it in a way that when people read it, it's as if I'm sitting right there with them.
Oh, good answer.
And so that was my first book. And yeah.
Was it hard to figure out, okay, what am I going to write about next?
No, I literally sat down. I rebranded my business in 2017, 2018, and because it was Princeton Clark Coaching, and then I rebranded to Evolved Mastery. And I said, okay, one way to promote the new rebrand is to start a podcast. So I started the Evolved Mastery podcast. And then I said, I'll write a small ebook. Well, the first night I sat down to write the ebook, no outline or nothing. I just wanted it to be about self-mastery. And then I started thinking about 3 pillars of self-mastery: mind, body, soul. And if any of those pillars are out of alignment, something in your life is going to be out of alignment.
Right.
And so I just started writing. And the first night I wrote over 10,000 words. And I was like,
goodness,
this is not going to be an ebook.
You did that in one night?
One night.
An all-nighter?
Yeah. Well, I probably up until about 3:30, 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
I started around 9:30, 10.
Wow.
Yeah. And it just flowed. The whole book came out like that. Like, I didn't have an outline. It's like I just wrote it, and it was split into 3 parts: mind, body, soul. And then I was sharing my story, and then the wisdom gained over the last, because you think at that point, it had been 15 years, and it was just so much that I knew that it was just all flowing out. And so I tell people I channeled that book. Like, it just came through.
And so you have all these resources, you work with individuals. What is that, when you work with these entrepreneurs and individuals, what are you working with them on? Are they entrepreneurs that have big businesses, small businesses? Are they ones that need realignment? Or I'm sure it kind of runs the gamut.
It all runs together. For me, I always say I'm not a coach for everyone. I'm a coach, number one, for those who are saying I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. I'm ready for results now. I'm tired of playing it small in my life. Because I'm not going to just sit here and just pat you on the back. It's okay you playing it small and, I know life has been hard. There's other coaches to help you with that. There are therapists that can help you with that. I am a results-driven coach. I'm that person you come to if you say you want to get this result, I'm going to kick you off the cliff so you can form your wings and fly. Whether you are an entrepreneur, whether you are already a business owner, whether you are a mom or a dad who is saying, I want this next level of my life. I'm going to show you how to master you so that you can get the result, because you are the root to the tree. Whether we're talking business, relationships, mental, physical, spiritual, whatever result you want to get, I'm going to teach you how to master you in a way to where the entire tree can be fruitful.
Amazing. All right. How do we find you?
Best way, I'd say you can Google me, Princeton Clark, and you'll find all my stuff. I have built-in SEO, or you can find me at Princeton Clark on Instagram. My link tree is in the bio. All my books and everything are there. Social media is probably the best way. That way you can get the link. So find me on IG at Princeton Clark.
And you'd respond to some of those DMs if anyone has questions. 100%. 100%. Princeton, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Oh my goodness, what a wealth of knowledge and great inspiration inspiration and encouragement. And you have so many resources out there that we can check out as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, we hope today's episode of The Balancing Act helped many of you, gave you a little bit of wisdom and maybe a few chuckles as well. Thanks for watching.